Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three Martinis coming up.
Hey, really glad you're with us for the Friday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. Jim Garrity is back with us today, thanks to Andy McCarthy and John Gabriel for filling in the past couple of days. And Jim actually still joins us from Florida. He'll be returning home quite soon, I think today, and his family will be overjoyed. However, Jim, if you stayed long enough in Florida, you would eventually be nominated for Attorney General of the United States. So
I realized, Greg, that I'm staying at a hotel that is a 10-minute drive from Mar-a-Lago, Palm Beach. I was able to speak at an excellent local university, and in part because of its proximity to Mar-a-Lago and the sense that this is the Southern White House now, and of course the fact apparently every major New York financial firm has offices down here. This is basically like the Florida part of the Acela Corridor. This is part of the Washington, New York political, government, business, finance nexus, but with really great weather, except when they have hurricanes.
Yes, exactly right. But let's talk about the big shift that happened with the president's nomination for Attorney General. You and I talked last
Greg,
week about...
I hate to interrupt, but let's just emphasize the big shift with an F. Big shift.
Yes, indeed. Well, we talked last week about how Matt Gaetz, in our opinions, was not the strongest pick the president could make for Attorney General for a wide variety of reasons. And then yesterday, after the day before going up on Capitol Hill and making it seem like things were going well, Matt Gaetz sends out a tweet saying, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. He said, I had excellent sessions with senators yesterday, meaning on Wednesday. I appreciate their thoughtful feedback. And then you could read a lot into that, I guess, and the incredible support of so many. While the momentum was strong, it is clear that my confirmation was unfairly becoming a distraction to the critical work of the Trump-Vance transition. There's no time to waste on needlessly protracted Washington scuffle. Thus, I'll be withdrawing my name from consideration to serve as Attorney General. Trump's DOJ must be in place and ready on day one. And so, Jim, this was, I think, an admission that he wasn't going to get confirmed. There are already reports that at least 4 Republicans were hard-nosed: Collins of Maine, Murkowski of Alaska, McConnell of Kentucky, and the incoming John Curtis of Utah. So ultimately, whether Gaetz saw the writing on the wall or he got shoved, who knows? But within hours, Trump was out with his choice of Pam Bondi as his new nominee for Attorney General. Pam Bondi, you've seen her on cable news forever. She was Florida's Attorney General for 8 years, defended Trump at certainly his Ukraine impeachment, if not the other one. So certainly compared to Gaetz, and I think just given her resume, she is much more likely to receive a favorable review up on the Senate side of Capitol Hill. So what are your big takeaways?
So the bad news is that, the nomination of Gaetz was always the longest of long shots. It always was one that seemed to be driven almost by a whim. Allegedly, Boris Epstein had recommended this and persuaded Trump while Susan Wiles was not in the room, which probably was a sign that in the future, Trump should listen to Epstein less and listen to Wiles more, or at least run it by Wiles, see what she thinks about these sorts of things. But kind of the silver lining is that if this was a giant waste of time, okay, it only wasted a week. That this actually went through this process very quickly. Greg, he didn't even last one Scaramucci cycle, 8 days instead of 11. And so, all right, and Bondi, y'all wonder if whether she was always like the backup quarterback warming up on the sidelines, getting ready just in case Gaetz did not get through the nomination process. But it kind of looks pretty straightforward that, okay, you have a pick now who is indisputably qualified. There'll be stances and that she'll take that certain senators won't like. I do think they're going to be digging into her past as a lobbyist. Beginning of her lobbying career, she did lobby for the government of Qatar, however you prefer to pronounce it, particularly on the issue of human trafficking. And let's just say the record of human trafficking in Qatar is not great. Oh, by the way, another one person who was also working as a lobbyist at that time for that firm, Susie Wiles. So this will come up in it. But look, this is someone who served as state attorney general, knows the law, knows the job, probably will be fine. And I know there are some people going to say, aha, this was Trump playing 12-level chess. Gaetz was always meant to go down in flames. It was meant to make the Senate much more eager to confirm whoever the second nominee was. I suppose that's possible, but I think the simplest explanation, Occam's razor, would suggest that no, Trump just really wanted Gaetz, thought he was going to be able to get through, misread how cooperative Senate Republicans were going to be. And one of the reasons this is a good martini is that I think this is Senate Republicans. The agenda of Trump and the agenda of Senate Republicans, as a Venn diagram, it's not a complete circle, but there's a lot of overlap there. But Senate Republicans also want to save Trump from himself and his own worst instincts. And to recognize, you know what, Mr. President, this guy you picked, he's really not a good selection for the job. I'm just going to say the word teenage sex parties are just not something you should have associated with really for any position, but attorney general is bad. Like, you just don't hear John Ashcroft and teenage sex parties in the same sentence. It's just, yeah. Ed Meese, there's just not who you would put in that category. So this was always going to be a Herculean task to get him confirmed by the Senate. It was going to be a tough vote for a bunch. I know that when they say at least 4, remember, within a day, it was anywhere from a 12 to like 30 Republican senators were at minimum wavering, right? We're indicating no enthusiasm for this. The only thing that's happened between now and then is a couple of meetings that Gaetz took and a couple, revelations from what this House ethics report said. We haven't seen the full thing, but, there's been this drip, 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 and that it was, utterly unsavory. So it's more than 4. This, you don't drop out if you think you have a chance of arm twisting your way to do this. I think Gaetz saw the handwriting on the wall that it was never going to happen. He may return in some other Trump administration role. I know he said that he withdrew from this Congress, but not the next Congress. So he was elected to another full term this past year. So it's in November. So it's conceivable that he could return in Congress. I don't know what the future holds for him, but I do know that the odds of the Trump presidency, Trump's second term, beginning with an attorney general in place quickly, improved dramatically yesterday. And that's a good martini.
It's definitely a good martini. I don't think he's going to be in the new Congress for a couple of reasons. Number one, in his letter to Mike Johnson, he said he did not intend to take the oath in the new Congress. I guess you could back off on that. But Ron DeSantis has already scheduled the special election. So I suppose you could rescind your resignation. But if he's again a sitting member of the House, guess what process kicks back into gear?
The House Ethics Committee comes back. Yeah.
Yes. So I don't think he has any intention of coming back. And just to lay this to rest, Marco Rubio is probably going to get confirmed as Secretary of State. Ron DeSantis is not going to appoint Matt Gaetz to fill that Senate seat. 0% chance. So stop hoping that that's going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's like fetch. It's just not going to happen.
Greg, I can say this because I'm here in the state. We can report that, yes, technically Matt Gaetz is in line for that seat. The only issue is that the only people who are in front of him are every other human being in the state of Florida and several alligators, right? That's,
Yeah, I don't know who it's going to be. I'm sure he's got lots of good options. There's a huge Republican majority in the state legislature, so there's plenty of folks there. I've heard his chief of staff possibly. I hope he doesn't pick another House member because, again, the numbers are already tight enough there, even though there are some really good House members down there. But I think Ron DeSantis will make a good choice, and it's not going to be Matt Gaetz. The other thing you've mentioned, Jim, and other people have mentioned as well, is now that Gaetz is not drawing all the slings and arrows up there, there's other somewhat controversial nominees that may get more intense heat now, whether it's Hegseth, whether it's Kennedy, whether it's Gabbard. I don't know exactly, but it does change the balance of intensity of opposition potentially on some of these things. So we will find
Kennedy,
out.
Gabbard, and Hegseth might be like, no, Gaetz, stick around for at least a few more weeks.
That's right.
Be the lightning rod.
Exactly. I'll tell you what you want to stick around, though, and that is the amazing contents of the box of meat you're going to get from Omaha Steaks. But the problem is you're not going to be able to keep it for long because it's just so good. You're going to want to cook it and eat it. The steaks are fantastic, super tender, tons of flavor. The burgers are big and really good, simple, easy prep. Lots of great sides like the steak cut fries, chicken, wine, other sides, desserts, seafood, the whole 9 yards. And right now, fantastic deal. Save 50% site-wide at omahasteaks.com, plus get an extra $30 off with the promo code 3ML and a $30 reward card when you shop early. Look, I'm sure you're still filling out at least some of your Christmas list, and I'm guessing most of those people are going to love what Omaha Steaks provides. So take the guesswork out of gift giving and get a box for yourself, too. Visit omahasteaks.com, save 50% off site-wide. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with the promo code 3ML and a $30 reward card when you shop early. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with the promo code 3ML. Minimum purchase may apply. All right, Jim, on to our second mostly good martini here. The 2-week nightmare is over in Pennsylvania, thanks in part to the state Supreme Court in their all caps bold ruling talking about ineligible votes. But Bob Casey has now formally conceded to Dave McCormick. And in the eyes of Democrats, that's really what needs to happen to make election results official. So Dave McCormick will be the 53rd vote in the U.S. Senate. Bob Casey, in his concession announcement on Twitter, X last night, going for about 3.5 minutes. He did congratulate McCormick out of the gate, but then spent the bulk of his time defending his 2-week plus adventure here in refusing to acknowledge that he lost. First of all, thanking county officials for their diligence here.
This race was one of the closest in our Commonwealth's history, decided by less than 1/4 of a point. I'm grateful to the thousands of people who worked to make sure that every eligible vote cast could be counted, including election officials in all 67 counties.
Really? Even the ones that were defying the Supreme Court in Bucks County, Pennsylvania? Come on. And others in that neighborhood. But then he also thanked this hastily assembled massive legal team that was just there to make sure everybody was franchised.
I'm proud of the work we've done since Election Day to enfranchise voters across the state, no matter whom they voted for, and to ensure that the democratic process could unfold. In just a few days, we built an organization of 350 staff across the state, joined by more than 1,000 volunteers who helped more than 6,000 Pennsylvania voters make a plan to fix small issues with their ballot, so their vote would be counted.
Jim, you think if Bob Casey had been up by 40 or 50,000 votes a day or so after the election that he would have assembled this massive legal team just to make sure everybody dotted their I's and crossed their T's? This was Mark Elias and his guys basically trying to see if they could finagle one more Senate seat for the Democrats. It didn't work, and now we get magnanimous Bob Casey, supposedly.
It's amazing how count every vote in all 67 counties just seemed to focus on like 4 of them that were deep blue and where you could probably find the most provisional ballots that would be counted for Casey. We should point out also that the winning candidate in the Pennsylvania Senate race, incoming Senator Dave McCormick, his response on Twitter to this was, quote, "Senator Bob Casey dedicated his career to bettering our Commonwealth. Dina and I want to extend our sincere gratitude to Senator Casey, Therese, and their family for their decades of service, hard work, and personal sacrifice. I am so honored to represent every single citizen in Pennsylvania in the United States Senate and will fight for you every day. Thank you." That was an exceptionally classy response that, Greg, I don't know about you, I am not capable of. I intend to mock the hell out of Bob Casey. And one of the things that was McCormick's instant response. My instant response last night on Twitter was the gif from the movie Titanic of the old woman saying, "It's been 84 years." It hasn't been, but it's been several weeks, and it was clear within a day of the election that this was, McCormick had the votes. It was a margin that it was too large. There weren't enough disputed provisional ballots out there to be a margin for Casey. So first of all, while my overall attitude is not "don't go away angry, Bob Casey, just go away," McCormick is a very classy guy, and you could argue that's more of what we need to see in politics. That, alas, I'm just not in the mood to give right now. But it is mostly good. But so I'm going to try to be a better person. I'm going to try to take the high road. So Greg, just let's just say, Bob Casey, I wish you every success in your future endeavors and your new career as the narrator on a sleep assistance app. Because, Greg, I don't know about you, but I hadn't heard enough of Bob Casey's voice to realize what an easy impression it would be and how we could make this podcast 3 hours long.
There's a reason. That was awesome, by the way. There's a reason I've always called him Prince Valium, if you remember that character from Spaceballs. He's just, it looks like he's nodding off. He looks like his eyes are always heavy, and then his voice just completely,
He's a human nap.
That's right. I'm sure he'll make tons of money somewhere. Bob Casey's going to be just fine, but he's going away, and that's what's most important. So congratulations, Dave McCormick. We knew it 2 weeks ago, but hey, congratulations officially nonetheless. All right. Well, for Mark Elias, I would say better luck next time, but I don't mean that at all because you tried to steal an election here, pal, and you always try to present yourself as the defender of democracy, but you're probably throwing back some pretty hard drinks these last couple days when you realized that your effort wasn't going to work. So, hey, try some Z-Biotics before you do it the next time, though, because I promise you, you will feel better the next morning if you take Z-Biotics before you have that first drink.
Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. When you drink, the alcohol you drink gets converted into a toxic byproduct in your gut. And it's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next morning. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol produces an enzyme that breaks this byproduct down. So just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, as I'm sure you always do, and you'll feel your best the following morning.
I know that it works. I've got a colleague who had known his limits well. Then they weren't working so well as he aged. He tried Z-Biotics and everything worked out great the next morning and has ever since. So go to zbiotics.com/3ml to get 15% off your first order when you use 3ml at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantees, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Visit zbiotics.com/3ml and use the code 3ml at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, Z-Biotics, for sponsoring this episode and our good times. All right, Jim, on to our crazy martini to take us into the weekend now. And if you thought that the left was really bad at wasting taxpayer dollars, well, they are. And that's why Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy have jobs in the new Trump administration as they try to peel back some of this waste. But the Biden administration and others not going quietly as they leave here in the next couple of months. And the world is still asking for more money from the U.S. on the issue of climate. This is from Politico. They're having their COP29 summit in Azerbaijan. The only thing you should be talking about in Azerbaijan is their horrific treatment of the Armenians. But nonetheless, on this issue, organizers of the United Nations Climate Summit issued a draft agreement Wednesday that would see the U.S., the European Union, and other wealthy governments provide $250 billion a year in climate finance to developing nations by 2035. An amount that falls far short of the trillion-plus figure that the poorer countries had sought. You'd think they'd be grateful for $250 billion if that were to actually happen, but no. Turns out they're greedy, Jim. Panama's climate envoy, Juan Carlos Monterrey Gomez. It's ridiculous. With this number, they're spitting in our faces. Quote, "We don't take that seriously," said Kenyan climate envoy Ali Mohammed. So, Jim, I don't know what's going to get agreed on here. Hopefully it's nothing. This is just shoving money down an endless hole here. But in the end, the U.S. still hasn't figured out how the world is treating the U.S. and other developed nations when it comes to money and climate change. But the fact that even $250 billion is being scoffed at by the potential recipients tells you all you need to know.
Can't wait for Elise Stefanik to get there, Greg. I think I can predict her first three responses to this are going to be no, hell no, and did you not hear me the first two times? And like I'm kind of struck by like that the idea that they, maybe they figure the European countries are all going to want to dump money into this. South Korea, Japan, like are there other industrialized countries just like with billions upon billions lying around saying, hey, sure, yeah, we'll dump it into this? A little deeper into the article, that there's kind of revealing two paragraphs there. Quote, "Senior Biden administration officials have noted they are negotiating a deal that a future Democratic or climate-friendly government could meet." So it's kind of like, look, we're not even going to be around to deal with this, so it's not our problem. It's some future administration's problem. And oh, by the way, it's going to have to be a Democrat because we all know a Republican president is not going to say, sure, we'll just give away billions upon billions to third world countries so that they can improve their economies and develop alternative fuels and all that kind of stuff. 4 years of Trump, this is continuing the article, quote, 4 years of Trump and at least 2 years of full Republican control of Congress will likely diminish, if not obliterate, U.S. climate finance contributions, moderating what the U.S. can reasonably achieve. And then there's this quote, it has been a significant lift over the past decade to meet the prior smaller goal, a senior U.S. official said in a statement. By the way, I have no idea who said this, Greg, but I'm just imagining 250 billion will require even more ambition and extraordinary reach. It's not Kerry. Kerry's left government. He's no longer the president's climate czar, but this goal will have to be supported by ambitious bilateral action, multilateral development bank contributions, and efforts to better mobilize private finance, among other critical factors. So it's kind of like, so we set the goal, but we really have no idea how we're going to get there, which feels very on brand for the United Nations and very on brand for the international climate change movement. I suppose I should be glad that nobody echoed Kerry and said, well, look, if you do more on climate change, people would be more understanding about those other things you're doing, like mass murder and rape and pillage and the invasion of Ukraine. We'll let that go if you contribute more to our climate change stuff. I guess what's most surprising about this is that this is going on. The election has been over for, we're now going on, 2 weeks and change. People should, Trump's taken over on January 20th, and he's not the least bit interested in this. And even though you can find some diversity in terms of hawks and doves and people who are very anti-trade and people who are probably a little more free trade, I don't think there's anybody in the Trump administration who thinks it's a good idea to give bigger piles of money on the scale of billions to the United Nations in the name of climate change. And so it's such an utter non-starter. Are these guys thinking that, oh, well, Belgium's going to make up the difference here? Or we can count on Luxembourg for dumping in this money? Maybe the Europeans will contribute. I can't see this going anywhere, at least not with any U.S. help. And you wonder if it's even worthwhile then. But I guess we'll see. I guess these people are operating in a bubble. It's like they're in a sealed. They're hothouse plants, Greg. They can't survive outside. It's almost like there's a greenhouse effect that's protecting them, so that as the rhetoric gets hotter and hotter, there's no way for it to get exposed. Anyway, so I've lost the metaphor there.
It says the U.S., the EU, and other wealthy nations. Is China or India ever specifically mentioned in these things, or is it only the West that's got to pony up this gargantuan amount of money? It's just
it is great. These people are really into biological and kind of nature-based climate change. They are absolute denialists when it comes to political climate change.
That's right.
Accept reality, people.
Wow.
Get your heads out of the sand,
Something to be very grateful for. The Democrats won't be controlling the executive branch in the next 4 years. And Jim, I don't want anything negative to happen to him, but can we hope that 4 years from now, John Kerry, he's going to be 86 years old, might be done meddling in government and flying his private jet all over the place, trying to tell everybody he's saving the planet, or is that too much to hope for?
Pelosi will say he's young.
They never go away. They just never go away. Jim, safe travels back to D.C., and we'll talk to you on Monday.
Talk to you Monday, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Columbus of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. Do be sure to subscribe to our podcast if you don't already. Tell your friends about us as well. We'd love to have them listening too. Thanks for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep doing that, though. It really does help us, so we really appreciate that. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Dateline_DC. Have a terrific weekend. Join us again on Monday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.